Hey, I'm Julie, and today we're talking about the thing that got you here, the saying yes, the over delivering, keeping everyone happy, not making waves. It worked, and that's how you got the career you've got. But here's the uncomfortable bit. That same feeling, it's now your ceiling. You're watching people get roles you're more qualified for. You're noticing the gap between how hard you work and how far you're actually going. And it's not a small gap anymore. And by the end of this, you'll understand why the strategy that built your career stopped working in a certain level. And you have something you can actually use to start changing it. So that's what this show is all about today. The ceiling you built, why the strategy that you got here stopped working the higher you climb into your career. So let's start with what actually works day to day. I want to get a little bit specific here because this isn't abstract. Here are 3 scenarios that you might recognize. I certainly can relate to all of these. And when I'm reviewing all of this work, I'm like, oh my God, that's just me all over. So maybe they recognize with you too. So there was a role, you were qualified, but you didn't go for it. You told yourself it wasn't the right time, or you weren't quite ready, or maybe you'd wait for the next one. Or there was a negotiation on that job. There was that offer, that salary, that promotion. Now you had a number in your head, but you didn't say it. You took what they offered and told yourself it was fine. And finally, there was a meeting. You had a view. Someone else pushed back, but you backed down. Not because you weren't right, but because it felt easier than holding your ground. Now, these aren't 3 separate problems. They're the same pattern wearing different outfits. I'm going to say that again because this is important. These aren't 3 separate problems. They're the same pattern wearing different outfits. So here's the thing. This pattern didn't come from nowhere. Now, what I'm talking about today is I'm going to walk you through a different way of seeing what's actually happening here. Because I want you to understand it's not a flaw. It's not something wrong with you. And as a strategy that worked brilliantly for a long time, you're now hitting that limit, this glass ceiling limit that I like to refer to. And then I'm going to give you something that you can use, a way to catch this pattern in the moment and make a different choice, something you can run this week. And as you know, I always like to give you a little tool or strategy or technique in every episode. So please go back and watch any of the others and pick up anything that might be useful for you. But first, let's look at where this actually comes from. Where did it all start? Now, you'll hear me talking about this all the time, that this goes back to our childhood, to early on in our lives, right? You might have learned that maybe being good wasn't enough. You had to be good and you had to be easy to work with. You needed to be good and reliable. You needed to be good and no trouble. Now, this could stem back from many different things, but here are some examples. And a lot of these are taken from experiences from clients of mine, examples that come up time and time again. Now, one that come up quite often is someone who has a parent that's quite critical and they never seem to be quite satisfied by what you do. So that might be, say you did an exam or a test at school and you come home excited because you got 95% and all you heard was, why didn't you get 100%? Maybe it was a teacher, a boss, a culture that rewarded the people who delivered without complaint. Perhaps as a small child, you took on the role of the perfect one because you believed that was the only way to feel loved and feel supported. So you become that person, and that person is the one that says yes, the one who figures it out, the one who doesn't make waves. And here's the important bit. It wasn't a mistake. It was smart. It was adaptive. And it got you promoted. It got you noticed, and it got you into rooms you might not have otherwise got into. So this is what I see time and time again. Why has it stopped working? The game changes at senior level because things change. The gap widens, not just a little bit, but fundamentally. At a certain point, you need to hold position under pressure. You need to advocate for yourself in rooms where nobody's going to do it for you. And you need to say no to the good things so that you can say yes to the right things. And the person who says yes to everything, who keeps everyone happy, who doesn't push back, they can't do any of that. And here's what happens. That gap opens. You've seen someone who delivers. Brilliant managers love having those on the team, don't they? You know, the one that is always reliable, the one that just gets stuck in, the one that gets it done, but they're not necessarily the right one in that boardroom. Now, there's a huge difference between valued for your output and being respected for your judgment. And that difference matters enormously if you want to move up in that scale at work, in your life, in your career, in anything. Now, the people getting those senior roles, they're not working harder than you. They're not working smarter than you. They've just updated what good looks like at that level, and you haven't yet. So what's actually running? Now, this isn't a mindset problem, and this is what people try and tell you over and over again. This is something you can think it's not something you can think yourself out of, right? Why? Because there's an automatic reaction that kicks in before you've had time to think. The moment you could push back, something inside you says don't. And it's that moment when you could name that price, but something tightens in your chest and you hear yourself saying something smaller. Maybe you're advocating for £80,000 pay rise or new promotion, but you go, 70, that'd be fine. Because you just can't bring yourself to say that number. Now, that reaction was installed a long time ago. It's running in the background and it's faster than your conscious mind. Now, the physical reaction held in your subconscious mind will react before the thought has even been thought. Again, let that land. Your physical reaction in the body that's stored is going to physically react before you've even thought about a situation. Now, I have spoken about this in one of my other shows, but everything we talk about in all these shows all leads back to what I talk about, the identity box, right? Where it's been created when we were just small children, sometimes in the womb, sometimes at very early doors of being born, but very much before about 7 or 8, we don't have logic, right? So we create all these beliefs about ourselves. I'm not good enough. I can only expect to be loved if I'm good. So you try to be a people pleaser, even at that young age, because you're trying to gain that love and affection. When we talk about that critical parent, perhaps, or caregiver, who whatever you did just wasn't enough. So that little version of you is like, well, how do I earn that love? So you keep trying to please more and more and more. But as we get older, that just becomes more difficult, right? You can't be in that mode when you're in a boardroom or trying to solve huge issues in a relationship. Because remember, this identity doesn't just impact your career, it impacts all aspects of your life, regardless. And one, I always like to kind of bring in some real life stuff here as well. But what comes up very, very often when I do deep dive sessions with my clients, I'm taking them back along their identity timeline. And very, very often, it's very common for someone to go back to a childhood scene at school. Now, I don't know if schools are better now than when, it was a long time ago that I went to school, right? But it was always very much, you stand in front of the class, you've got to read a story out of a book or something, and most people struggle with that because it's being exposed. And if you're that small child standing in front of the class and you fluff your lines, get it completely wrong, all you can see in front of you is a sea of faces laughing at you. And maybe the teacher's not that encouraging either, and they laugh as well or something like that. That feeling in your body is, oh my God, I feel sick. Oh, maybe your heart's racing. Maybe you've gone bright red, whatever it is, or maybe it's all of them, right? But that your brain now has associated that embarrassment, that frustration, maybe that anger, whatever feelings it evoked in that moment, it's now stored that in your filing cabinet, in your subconscious mind. So when an event happens, we attach a meaning to it. And that meaning might be, if I speak out, I'm going to get laughed at. If I stand in front of people, I'm just going to be embarrassed. So they stop doing it. And that subconscious program is now installed, right? So when you put that into your everyday life now, put yourself in front of that, people in the meeting room, that little version of you, that 5-year-old who was in school standing up, that is the version that is reacting in that moment. That physical reaction goes back down that timeline. So it's about going and finding the root cause of why you behave like that. And that's when, I'm just going to remind you about my little tree analogy, right? What we need to do is get to the root cause of where all this is coming from. So these branches represent, if we use that boardroom example, this might be a branch where you just didn't have the confidence to speak up, or that, you wanted to speak your mind, but this little version of you come back down to the root of when you were 5. So don't speak your mind because they're all going to laugh at you. Yeah. So these branches or your imposter syndrome, your stress, your anxiety, all the behaviors and actions and habits that you're running in your everyday life are all being driven by these roots, which are beliefs, identities, subconscious programming. And if you think about the soil, where the grass is here in the middle there, that's surface level. So we can make surface level changes, but if you really want to go deep and make fundamental changes, you need to get to the root. Let's get rid of that. So always think about our lovely tree and the branches and the roots. Are you recognizing any of these situations? And I definitely recognize many of those in myself, or the old version of me anyway. I mean, I still get them in the current version of me, but because I've done a lot of deep work, I know now that I know what to do when something comes up, and I can go and find it. But also when I'm doing new things in life, like this show and putting myself forward to do new things, if I get that feeling of, oh God, that doesn't feel comfortable, I'm now dealing with more recent version of myself, not, Julie when she was 5 or Julie when she was 7. It's probably, there might still be stuff there because there's always things to uncover, but it could be a more recent version of myself that I need to address and push forward with. And this all goes back to, we can, that using that example in the classroom, right? We can know that that's the situation that's caused the problem that you've got, but that's not going to help fix it because that physical automatic override is still there. So that subconscious programming is just running on automation. We spoke about this before, about the analogy of tying your shoelaces. It takes a long time when you start doing it, but once you got used to it, you're automatically doing it. We're breathing automatically. You clean your teeth automatically. You don't have to think about it. And these things, once we do it all the time, we learn by repetition, then all good things are great because those things are being learned and we're playing them out every day. But also remember, this is negative things that we're playing on repetition as well. And they're the ones that we need to be aware of and we need to make changes to. So I really hope this is making sense. So let's look at what actually shifts this. Now, here's what I want you to take away from this. I call this the position hold. It's a 3-step thing that you can run in the moment when you feel yourself about to back down. Say yes when you mean no, or shrink your ask. So it's a short 3-step process. So step number 1 is to catch the tightening. So before you speak, notice what's happening in your body. There's usually a tightening somewhere, and it might be in your chest, it might be in your throat, it might be your stomach. And that's the signal that the old pattern is about to run. All right. So you're not trying to stop it, you're just noticing it. That's the catch. Now, step number 2, I want you to buy 2 seconds. So don't respond immediately. Just say something like, let me think about that, or give me a moment, or just simply pause. 2 seconds is normally enough because what you're doing is interrupting the automation, the automatic pattern, right? The pattern wants you to respond fast because you've had time to choose. And that pause breaks it. Sorry, let me repeat that. So what you're doing is interrupting the automatic. The pattern wants you to respond fast before you've had time to choose it. The pause breaks that. So step number 3, say the thing you're going to edit. There's usually a version of you want to say that's already forming, right? And then there's the edited version, the softer one, the smaller one, the one that won't make anyone uncomfortable. So what we mean by that is before this edit happens, so in other words, before your brain kicked in and went, oh, I can't say that, before that edit would have happened, you would have said something that what you really wanted to say. So say the first one, the one before the edit. I hope that makes sense. So again, let's put those into scenarios. So hopefully this will make it a little bit clearer for you. Scenario 1, the meeting pushback. So imagine this, right? You're in a meeting, someone pushes back on what you recommended, and you can feel that tightening. Your instinct is to soften and say, yeah, maybe you're right, even though you don't think they are at all. So instead, what you're going to do, you're going to catch it and pause. You say, I hear that, but I think we will do it this way anyway, and here's why. So you held your position. That's it. That's the move. Okay, let's give you another example. Scenario 2, a salary conversation. So you have a number. It's fair. It's what you're worth, yet you can feel that tightening as you're about to say it. So instead, you're going to catch it. You pause. You say the actual number, not the one that you edited down before you were worried, the actual number. So therefore, you've named your price. And that's the move. So let me explain why this works. You're not trying to override years of conditioning with willpower. You're just creating a gap between the trigger and the response. It's just a small gap, 2 seconds. The gap is where choices live. And every time you make a different choice in that gap, you're showing your nervous system that it's safe to hold your ground, that nothing terrible happens when you don't back down. Now, this is the beginning of actually changing how you show up. Not just understanding why you do what you do, but being able to do something different. So, what becomes possible when you stop running you? So, when you stop automatically deferring, something changes in how people see you. So, what do we mean by that? Well, you become someone whose judgment is trusted, someone who can hold a room, someone who gets considered for roles that require more than just delivery. And something changes in how you see yourself too. You stop feeling like you're working twice as hard for half the recognition. You stop wondering why this is not translating. So this is the deep work I do with my clients. And as you know, it's called the Identity Box Rewire Method. And we go underneath the pattern and update what's actually driving it. We go to the root. So remember my tree? We're going to the root. We're not just trimming those branches. We're going to the root of where it all came from. And it's surprisingly fast to actually do that. But the position can hold more. That's something you can start with right now. So let me just land this for you and do a quick recap. The strategy that built your career, saying yes, over delivering, keeping everyone happy, it worked. And now it's your ceiling. Not because it's wrong, but because the game changed and the strategy didn't. So your one thing this week, pick one moment where you normally back down. Soften your ask or say yes when you mean no. Run the position, hold and move. So catch the tightening, buy 2 seconds and say the thing you were going to edit. All right. Now, it's obviously up to you, but I would recommend trying it even just once and see what happens. Now, you know that if you watch this show every week, I do always try to give you a strategy to watch, something to go and try. And if you're open to this, go and buy yourself a journal or a pad or something, and maybe go through some of the other strategies and write them down and start bringing them into your life. Okay. Even if you only choose one, just something that starts bringing awareness, because without awareness, we can't make changes, can we? And if nothing changes, nothing changes. And you just carry on automatic pilot, just carrying on as you are on that treadmill of life. But it doesn't have to be like that. You can make changes and live your life in abundance, in love, happiness, money, anything you want. But you have to start with awareness. And just doing any of these strategies will start bringing that awareness to you. And then, like I say, once you're aware, you can start noticing. And once you start noticing, you can make changes. Now, if you've recognized yourself in this episode, if you've been that person who delivers without complaint and you're starting to see the ceiling that creates it, and you're starting to maybe see a gap, then maybe it's time now for you to book your upgrade game plan. If it feels right, if it doesn't, that's fine. Now, my 45-minute game plan really is a free session, and it's just an opportunity for us to meet and get a little bit of an idea of what's running your show, what's actually driving your patterns, and then we can come up with a game plan. And if that's something what you want to do going forward, that's great. If it isn't, that's fine too. But I also have, hang on, let me just give you the game plan QR code. I'll drop the link for it as well in a little while, but there's a QR code for the game plan, right? So if that's something that you feel you're ready for, there's no commitment. It's totally free. Let's just have a chat and see where it goes. If that's not what you want to be doing right now, that's absolutely fine. But I also have a new audio for you as well. Now, this I've designed specifically for you guys, right? So if you're someone who gets into bed and your brain won't switch off, right? This is for you. This is definitely for you. I've created this evening audio, okay? And this is all about calming your mind, calming your body. And if you're anything like I used to be, I would go to bed and I couldn't sleep because all this stuff was being repeated in my head, you know, that 2 a.m. wake up call, and you start worrying about what tomorrow's going to bring, what it might be Sunday night, it's Monday morning again, you know, it's all coming round. This is just 10 minutes of relaxation to get your mind and body to calm down so that you can drift into a beautiful deep sleep. All right. It's about 10 minutes, something like that, but something that I'd recommend you do every single night, at least for a week, and see if you notice a difference. All right. So if any of this resonates, then just reach out. Okay. So What's one moment recently where you think that you've backed down? Maybe you've softened your ask or you said yes when you mean no. All right. Let's do a quick recap. Right. So we're going to do the position, hold, move strategy today. So number 1, catch the tightening. Number 2, buy 2 seconds. Number 3, say the thing you were going to edit. So being valued for your output, being respected for your judgment. The pattern that got you here is the ceiling that's keeping you here too. So I've been Julie, and thank you so much for watching. And if you haven't already subscribed to Millicide Therapy and Coaching, please go and subscribe, like the episodes that you're watching, and go and see some more. Enjoy your day. Enjoy the rest of your week. Thank you for watching. Bye for now.